So, filmmaking, historically filmmaking I think has been maybe one of the most inaccessible art forms. Put up against painting where you need a paintbrush and a canvas, or writing where you need a pencil and paper. Filmmaking has always required this kind of enormous infrastructure behind it. And that's changed entirely in the last 10 years. And now, I like to think filmmaking is accessible to just about everyone. It's finally become like an egalitarian form of art in the same way that painting or drawing or writing has been. And my favorite example of that is the iPhone. Mine's pink. In the iPhone, it has a notes application, so you can write your movie. It has a camera on the back, so you can shoot your movie. And then you can actually edit your movie on the iPhone, and then you can upload it to YouTube. So you have like a pre-production, production, post-production, distribution platform on a cell phone, which is crazy to think about 10 years ago. Kind of what I want to talk about is the impact and the changes, what I see as positive changes, that it's had on the medium by making it accessible to everyone. Something I really enjoy doing, and I don't do enough of, but I do some of, is talk to young people, talk to kids about filmmaking. Forgot this. And what I try to share with them the most is embrace everything you have around you, embrace the resources that are available to you. So often young people and the people that are teaching them get hung up on this old-fashioned understanding of filmmaking, which is you need a big camera, you have to have your script, you have to have all this infrastructure, which is beyond being expensive and a big pain in the ass. It's intimidating to think of all of that and to try to consider all of that when you want to make something, versus picking up a piece of paper and drawing a picture. I got my start. Do I push the button now? Okay, so this is the iMac DV. This came out, I think, 10 years ago, maybe 11 years ago. And it was like $1,000, and this was the first consumer-marketed computer that you could edit video on. I maxed out my credit card and bought one of these. My older brother told me to. And I did whatever he said, so I got it. And I made a bunch of movies about my girlfriend and about my kid, and anything I could make movies on, I did. And I used this device, which was amazing. All of a sudden, at the time, I was a dishwasher, and I lived in a trailer park, but in my free time, I was making movies on my iMac, which was great. So, kind of to drive this idea that I want to talk about home, I'm going to cite a little bit of my career to give some context to it, because I think one of those really awesome byproducts of this egalitarianization of filmmaking is my career. So I'm going to talk about that for a minute. So after I got this blue iMac, and mine's blue, orange iMac, and started making movies with it, I moved to New York City with $800, dead broke, living in the city, and worked with my brother, and we had a day job. And in all of our free times, we would make movies about anything we could make movies about. And we would search for subject matter, anything. What we didn't make movies about, or with anyways, was with a script, with actors, with any of that understood infrastructure you needed. Mainly because we didn't have access to it. We shot whatever we had and whatever we thought was interesting. And we made a shitload of movies. And the first movie we made that anybody saw was in 2003. And this is a good story for Eddie Lampert, who talked yesterday about biting the hands that feed you. So in 2002, I think, Apple came out with the iPod. And in 2003, my iPod battery died. And I called up, and I was like dead broke at the time. It was a present. I called up Apple to fix it, and they were like, just buy a new one. And it really pissed me off. So I called them back, but I recorded the phone call. And this is at the time, I know. This is at the time when Apple had those awesome, those silhouette with the colors, posters all over New York City. I mean, the whole city was covered in them. So I recorded the phone call, and then my brother Van and I went around with this stencil, and we spray painted iPod's unreplaceable battery lasts only 18 months on every one of these in New York City. And we didn't think it was, I mean, sure, we were wise asses, but we just thought we'd educate the masses. Like, if Apple wasn't going to do it, we thought we would. And the irony here is that this video is huge. This is before YouTube. This is when viral meant chlamydia in a frat house. This thing was huge. This was emailed all over the place, millions of views, Steve Jobs sending me hate mail, and then like a week later Apple changed the policy and they were like, yeah, we were going to do it anyways. Which is great. But again, this video brought a lot of eyeballs to my brother and me, and people got to see all these other little stupid videos that we'd been making for years. And I tried to like find some press for you guys, but this is 7 years ago, so I couldn't really find. But this was some of that. And anyhow, it brought a lot of attention to us, and if anything, it drove home the point that like you don't need any of that understood infrastructure. This was just like us being pissed off, and that was enough motivation, so we went and made this movie, and now we got all this attention. And we drove that home I stuck with that for a really long time, and now, you know, I make sort of serious movies. I just shot a documentary, a feature-length doc in Afghanistan, which is going to be kind of serious. But I never let go of that, and I still make sort of like wise-ass off movies. And this summer, this is a good one, I just want to tell this story, but this summer I was riding my bike through New York City, and I was pulled over in the pouring rain by a police officer for riding my bike outside of the bike lane. Which, come on, man, that's like, give me a break. So I filmed the cop on my iPhone, naturally, and then I made a movie of me going around trying to show the officer why you can't always ride in the bike lanes, and I crashed into everything I found. So the video is just me arguing with a cop for like 30 seconds, then me crashing my bike for another 2 minutes. And this thing was huge. I mean, this thing was bigger than the iPod movie. This was gigantic. Like, it was on every news outlet, and Bloomberg had to answer to it in a press conference. And what is this? The Guardian called me a warrior, which is awesome. And it was huge. And this, again, is another good exemplification of the idea that it's just embrace the resources that you have available to you. And this is what I try to talk to young kids about, and this is what I try to reinforce, is that like, let go of all the pretensions that is filmmaking and embrace what you have available to you. Now, my brother and I were really good at that, and we took this all... That's a good one, right? The last shot of the movie, I crashed into a cop car who's blocking the bike lane. It's not my fault. And I brought this up because 56,000 people liked the movie and 735 cops didn't like it. But we took this idea really far, and ultimately my brother Van and I took this to a television show on HBO, and I think that it was a huge deal for us, a huge success for us. It was a realization of a dream and all of that. But for me, the biggest deal was that this show on HBO wasn't taking us, who've done all this stuff, and forcing us into a pre-existing box, but it was take this model that we're so good at, which is this, what I call minimal resource filmmaking, or embracing whatever you have and making a movie about it. And they put that on HBO. And that's what the show was. It was no different from us spray painting iPod posters or crashing our bikes, or sometimes doing things a little bit smarter than that, if you could believe it. But they let us make this show. They played this show, and this part of the poster, I think, is the point that I'm talking about today, which is they called it a handmade home movie TV show, which I thought was eloquent and spot on. And the handmade aspect is that minimal resource filmmaking, I think, to the most refined level. And it's what I love about filmmaking, and the more I've talked about it, the more I've thought about it, I sort of look back at the roots and why I think about it, and I think it started with Sesame Street. So when I was a kid, we watched Sesame Street. This is what kids' television looks like, and I have a kid now, and so much of what kids' TV looks like today is this CGI stuff, all computer generated, and it's all perfect. And my problem with that, while I appreciate it and think it's beautiful, my problem with that is there's no human hand in that. You don't see the handmade. You don't see any sort of humanity behind that. Versus a Sesame Street, where even as a kid, you know, even if you believe Big Bird's a gigantic talking yellow bird, you believe that he's there. He's physical. It's a physical thing that you can touch. There's a tangibility to it that a lot of new stuff doesn't have, that a lot of this computer-generated stuff doesn't have. That's sort of what I loved. And Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood, like, this wasn't a CGI image. Like, somebody had to build this little model. And I realized the more that I sort of focus on it, the more that I talk about it, the more that I think about it, these are the roots, and this is sort of my inspiration. And I also think this is why there's somewhat of a divide when I talk to young people today, and they're intimidated and they're nervous about making films because they can't make them as polished and as clean as the new stuff they see. Whereas me, I love this stuff. So I try to drive that home, and I try to still preserve that within my filmmaking. And what I want to show you guys today is this little movie I made last year about Facebook. And I think that it best exemplifies a lot of these ideas that I've talked about, of embracing your surroundings, of embracing the humanistic aspect, which is humans, we're totally imperfect, and why shouldn't a film be imperfect? Why is it that in a painting we like to see the brush strokes, but in a film it has to be polished, it has to be so scrubbed clean that there's no sign of humanity behind it? I like to go as far as I can in the other direction as possible and embrace the imperfections, highlight the imperfections, show your scars. But this Facebook movie, what this is this was last year when Time Magazine did a cover story on Facebook, just as they broke 500 million users, but people still didn't know really what it was or how it worked. And Time Magazine did a cover story. New York Times did this huge, I think it was an editorial on it. And in reading both of them, I thought that it'd be better described as a movie. So again, like that minimal resource, I used the Time Magazine, I used the New York Times as my script, as my treatment, and I turned that into a more visual medium, which was a movie. I probably made 100 movies. Why I picked this one, I just thought it best articulated that. Plus it's Facebook, which I'm sure a couple of you guys know about, and maybe it'll drive that home. So that's it. I'm not going to talk anymore after the movie plays, but...
In today's Tech Bites, Facebook is responding to the heat over its privacy settings. The social networking site sent a statement to the BBC saying it may simplify the settings.
I'm going to interview you now.
Yeah, what do you want to know?
I want to talk to you about Facebook.
I find it such a waste of a lot of time.
I'm a big fan of Facebook. I like to put pictures on there. I like to stay in touch with friends. And it's good for keeping tabs on my ex-girlfriend. Facebook has been catching a lot of heat lately for its privacy policy and a bunch of other things I don't really understand. This one I found particularly funny. So I wanted to make this little movie to help understand what Facebook is. Facebook is a tool, a community, a way to stay connected with people. But it's also something else. You see, there are two sides to Facebook. The side you know, this is our side. This side's about the friends, the status updates, family, messages. This side is personal. The other side is their side, the business. See, Facebook is free to use, but they make a lot of money. The more info Facebook has, the more it can pool for advertisers. Our personal data equals their bottom line. Are you concerned about Facebook's privacy policy?
No, I haven't even thought about that. That doesn't bother me.
Right, Facebook's privacy policy. Information about yourself. When you sign up for Facebook, you provide us with your name, email, gender, birth date. Here are some other things to remember. Some of the content you share or the actions you take will show up on your friends' home pages. If another user tags you in a photo or a video in a place, you can remove the tag. Even after you remove information from your profile or delete your account, copies of that information may remain reviewable elsewhere to the extent it has been shared with others. It was otherwise distributed pursuant to your privacy settings, or it was copied or stored by other users. Your privacy settings, even if to remove information. Casey, I have no idea what this means. I'm a personal injury lawyer. How's your leg?
The Facebook privacy policy. A binding legal contract between Facebook, the company, and all 500 million of us, the users. We agree to all this nonsensical legal jargon with one tiny little click. By clicking sign up, you are indicating that you have read and agree to the terms of use and privacy policy. Click. What have we all agreed to? I have no idea. But I can tell you this. The Facebook privacy policy is 5,830 words long. And all the rules that govern our country, the U.S. Constitution, comes in at a paltry 4,543 words. That's my kid, Owen. He's 12. He's all over Facebook. Truth be told, my only real concern with Facebook is him finding a picture of me, all sweaty and drunk, passed out in a pile of my own puke. That's not me. That's some other jackass I found on Facebook. What privacy settings do you use on Facebook? The privacy settings. 29 options across 11 categories for a nearly infinite number of configurations. The options I have to manage to keep those drunk pictures from my boy. Currently, I rock a pretty ironclad configuration, only sharing my birthday with strangers. The trouble is, now that I have my own show on HBO, I get about 100 friend requests a day. But I guess that's my problem. The Facebook default settings are a whole lot more liberal. The entire premise of Facebook is a contradiction. It's this sponge that soaks up all the information about us. It enables intimate moments, like me chatting with my little brother while he's deployed in the Middle East. But then it makes money by broadcasting these moments. No one forces you to use Facebook. If you're gonna eat the candy, deal with the toothache. In this case, the toothache is a total loss of privacy.